Hey guys, and welcome to a super spooky version of the weekly Q&A! Ryan Hammond asks if Star Wars exists...
Does Star Wars exist?
Ryan Hammond asks if Halloween exists in Star Wars and are costumes involved?
So, yeah, it does. This is one of those questions that's like, yeah, this has an answer. It's all in Star Wars Legends, and like most real world holidays that get translated into Star Wars, it's thanks to Ewoks. They seem to celebrate everything from Valentine's Day to New Year's to Christmas or Life Day. But yeah, in Halloween, they would dress up in costumes and have a big feast. There's also word of the Jedi celebrating it at their temple on Coruscant with decorations and even jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. But like all of that stuff is from old comics, basically the old Star Wars Adventures line. I think you can find some of it in Star Wars Galaxies, the MMO, stuff like that.
Which Jedi do you think gives out the best candy? I guess if trick-or-treating is a thing, we're gonna just assume it is.
I mean, I immediately jumped to the High Republic and Porter Engle because, I mean, he's a chef, so I think that he would probably give out something good. Mace Windu is probably the kind of guy that would give out raisins.
Oh, boo.
That's what I think.
Joe Costanue's giving out toothbrushes.
Yeah, that's definitely the way that would go. I wonder if Yoda and Yaddle get competitive with it. Like, I feel like older people, or are they giving out Werther's originals? Like,
oh, for sure, Werther's.
I also like that. I meant to mention this, but like many things in Star Wars, if you want to take something real world and make it fit in the Star Wars galaxy, Halloween, just like stick an apostrophe where it doesn't belong. That's what the Ewoks did, apparently.
Hey, our power came back on.
Also, it was hot with that helmet on.
Cam wants to know which Star Wars screenwriter writes the best dialogue.
I think I'm going to have to go with Lawrence Kasdan, because he did most of the writing for Han Solo after A New Hope, of course, but I really like the way that he writes Han. Especially young Han had some really good lines. I love when he and Kira are back together and she's like, what should we drink to? And he says, let's drink to and see what happens. I was like, I like that. I like when Han gets to be that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first movie that came to mind for me, for some reason, is The Phantom Menace. And the thing that Shmi says to Anakin, like right before he leaves, about like you can't stop the change, like you can't stop the suns from setting. I thought that was like a really nice line, but I hate to say George because he's written
Why?
written some real stinkers.
I mean, even the stinkers, like we are still talking about hating sand, and it's kind of like in a joking way, like. But there's a reason prequel memes have taken off so much, is that those lines have staying power. They might be silly and goofy, but we're still talking about them. He's
written some memorable quotes, I'll say that.
Yeah, but I mean, he also wrote A New Hope.
Yeah.
Which I think is a, in my opinion, perfect movie. I know not like most people think Empire's the best one. I love A New Hope the most. It is funny, though, to see George Lucas talking about writing and how much he hates it. He doesn't like to write. But he can do it. It's just writing is hard.
Writing is hard. Grogu asks if it'll be strange to hear Ahsoka and Anakin interacting without Ashley and Matt's voices.
I kind of think it will. Like, seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time, I don't know. It took some getting used to for me.
I think it'll be fine. Like, maybe at first it'll be a little bit weird, but I think we'll probably acclimate to it pretty quickly.
All of this, bringing animated characters into live action is still fairly new. I mean, we got Saw Gerrera, but he was pretty different from the way we saw him in the Clone Wars. And Bo-Katan, on the other hand, was like exactly the same because it was Katie's voice still. So it's just taking me some getting used to, I think, to see a character where I'm like, I know you from animation, and now I have to get used to you and a new representation of you. Anakin is different, though, where it's like we met him in live action, then we spent a lot of time with him in animation, so that I don't think is going to feel so different. But I did feel like it was really different to see Rosario playing Ahsoka.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely grown up a lot, so you could assume that her voice is going to sound a little bit different, but it'll be interesting to see if, like, Rosario's voice goes up a little bit when she's speaking with Anakin, because she kind of reverts back to her younger self.
That would be interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Like, that we might see some differences in her performance when she is performing around Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Same way that Hera loses her accent.
Right. Until she's back around her father. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, she slips back into that French Twi'lek kind of accent.
Jedi Bosk wants to know why we know so little about the Acolyte.
That's an interesting point. And we are getting close to, I think it's supposed to start filming in February. And I do wonder when we're going to start hearing casting announcements and like a plot synopsis that's more detailed than what we know now. But I think that as we get more and more projects, we might not hear as much about them. And maybe like the people who go around leaking stuff, like there's going to be more, I don't know, floating around, more information. And it might be like, well, wait, is this for the Acolyte or is it for the Ahsoka show? We don't really know what's what. Mm-hmm. So maybe people who leak stuff aren't comfortable leaking things when they are uncertain.
Yeah. I mean, we probably don't know a lot about it because it's still a long ways away, and we'll probably start hearing a lot more rumors and stuff when it does start filming.
I'm trying to remember when we started getting casting stuff for Kenobi, and I feel like it was shortly before it was starting to film, or maybe it was right as production was kicking off, so yeah, it's probably just a timeline thing, because yeah, it's over a year away if they're going to be filming it in 2022, mm-hmm. But it does still feel like we knew more about Kenobi and the Book of Boba Fett, but also it's like, well, we're really familiar with those characters, so there was more to speculate on. Acolyte is, as far as we know, going to be completely fresh.
Yeah, and something that you mentioned the other day that I wanted to bring up was that you said that you didn't want every live-action show to end by introducing the next live-action show that's going to come out. So that you, I think you said, like, at the end of the Ahsoka show, someone's gonna, like, drop the word Acolyte.
Like, I used to be known as the Acolyte. Or, yeah, I don't... Yeah, that's something I don't want, is for every series to end by building up the next one. I don't mind it for The Mandalorian going to the Book of Boba Fett, because that's a natural progression. Mm-hmm. But I hope the Book of Boba Fett doesn't then have some little tie-in to ObiWan Kenobi. And then that just ripples out to where it's like the Acolyte is supposed to be, as far as we know, completely separate. So I don't want them to force some sort of connection there.
Mitchell Mueller asks when kyber crystals take on a color and when do they change?
Yeah, so we've seen crystals that are just kind of like clear and pure. We've also seen some like the giant ones that have like a green hue to them. And we'll see crystals taken out of a lightsaber that are red or blue or green, or so like when does all that happen? I think it probably happens during lightsaber construction. Mm-hmm. Like during the gathering, it looks like the younglings get their lightsaber crystals, but we don't see any of them turn green. They do kind of look blue, but it's not until they put their lightsabers together and then turn them on that it seems like they take on a color.
Yeah, I think it's just something to do with the attachment, the bond that's being built when they are building the lightsaber, and then not till, like you said, it turns on does the crystal officially form the bond fully. It's like at 100% does it take on a color.
Right. But then we do know that obviously there are ways to change them. We can bleed them to red. They can be purified to white. We know Anakin changed Ahsoka's green to blue. I'm trying to remember if we've ever seen a like little green lightsaber crystal. But I assume Ahsoka's crystals were green and then Anakin did something to shift them to blue. But we have seen like the giant Death Star lightsaber crystals that looked kind of green at their core. I think that was mostly just an aesthetic choice so you could see it better instead of just a big clear thing. Mm-hmm.
That's it for our patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where we leave every submitted question a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. We have tons of other rewards like audio commentaries for the films and every new Star Wars series premiering on Disney+. We also record video reactions to every new series as we watch them for the first time. We're doing book clubs to discuss every new Star Wars book as they release. We have behind-the-scenes content, comic reactions every Wednesday, and more. All of that is available right now on our Patreon if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. Matthew Kelly asks if the Knights of Ren were around before Order 66.
It's possible. So the Secrets of the Sith book talked about how the Knights of Ren as we know them took their name from like a legendary marauding group. The Unknown Regions had legends about the Knights of Ren. So they weren't really the first group to be called that. But we're also seeing that they were around during the time of Return of the Jedi, and they were being led by Ren. So is this an organization that existed well into the Clone Wars era? Maybe?
I think, I don't know, I'm going to say no, because unless they were just like known by another name, like the Knights of Blank, but because they were led by Ren, I feel like that was the birth of that whole gang idea.
I think that could be like a title that passes, kind of like Mandalore. Like, just whoever is leading is just called Ren.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe he had a name before that. But I don't know. Like, the legendary Knights of Ren, I assume that story came from somewhere. So I'll say that, yeah, there probably were Knights of Ren before the Clone Wars, but this group that we know now, like, it sounds like they were just kind of taking the name for themselves. Whether or not the original group was real or fictional in the universe, I'm not sure. But I don't know, that starts to get... I liked the idea that they kind of rose to power because the Sith weren't around anymore.
Mm.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the comics in Crimson Reign and see like a young version of them. Also, you can see that there are different members at that point in time. So they're definitely kind of cycling through.
Yeah.
But even if they did exist, maybe they were out in the unknown regions like the legends say.
Joe Iorio wants to know if Paz Vizsla or the Armorer could return in Season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Could? Yes. Paz Vizsla is more of a maybe because it's possible he died on Navarro. The Armorer, I feel like it's just a matter of time before she gets some, maybe not comeuppance, but I feel like Din needs to talk to her and be like, I didn't know I was in a cult.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they left that scene of her just, like, kicking butt and taking names, like, you have to assume that we'll see her again. And, yeah, now that Din is continuing his journey on learning more about his past and learning more about Mandalorians, now that he knows that there's others out there that are very different from what he has known growing up, I definitely think it would make sense to further explore Din's, journey to see her again.
Yeah, I mean, if the story of The Mandalorian is that Din becomes Mandalore, and, like, this foundling raised in a subsect that was taught there's only one way, and now he's seeing, no, there's lots of ways to be a Mandalorian,
yeah.
And, like, I should be more open and accepting. If that is his journey, then, yeah, I think he needs to confront his past, and the symbol of that past would be the Armorer. And also, Emily Swallow, I believe, at DragonCon during our panel, said that she was supposed to die at the end of season 1, and they were like, never mind. So that to me, I don't know, suggests that they're like, we have some ideas for this character.
Arvel Crinid asks if they're the only person not into the idea of Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine for a rematch with Vader.
Well, Green Leader, first of all, thank you for your sacrifice. Second of all, no, you're not the only person. I have basically just come to accept that, you know what, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm not crazy about the idea. I am putting my trust in the writers that they have a good reason for it. And I've seen some of the leaks and rumors floating around. I'm not going to talk about them here, but if they are true, I'm like, okay, I hadn't considered that. and I like it.
Mhm.
It does make sense. But I am with you in that I originally am like, no, his mission is to protect Luke and he should stay on Tatooine. No matter what learning about Darth Vader means for him, Luke is more important. But I don't know. We don't know what his mental state is like at that point in time.
Yeah. I don't know. When I heard that this was going to be what the show was going to be about, my mind didn't automatically go to what his mission was to stay and protect Luke. I was just like, oh yeah, if he, learns about Vader and wants to give it another try, or, something big is going to pull him away from his focus on Tatooine. And I think that that's fine.
Yeah, that's always been my thing where I'm like, in my head canon, when we didn't have this story, I was like, and ObiWan stayed there for 19 years. So now it's just like, you're introduced to this new possibility. And when I've had this one in my head for so long, I just have to let that go and be like, no, this is what probably happened if that winds up being the case for the show. And yeah, hopefully I like the reason that he decides to leave. That's the big thing, is just like, what is the initial jumping off point?
Yeah, and I agree. Trust the writers.
Trust the Force.
Trust the Force. The RM Network wants to know when we think we'll see another dyad in Star Wars. Ooh.
I think it's going to be a while. Hello, Pippin. I think that the dyad is a new thing that was necessary for the storytelling of The Rise of Skywalker. Again, that's another thing that they introduced it, and I was like, I'm not wild about this, but they're going to use it again. It's going to come back up. So, I talked about this on like that Rule of Two video where I'm like, yeah, further exploration of these things almost always makes me like them more.
Mm-hmm.
So in one sense, I do hope that we get a new dyad story at some point, but also it's supposed to be a rare thing, so it should not pop up constantly. Like people saying, are Grogu and Anakin a dyad? Like, no.
Grogu and Anakin?
Yeah, people have thrown that theory out. Like, a lot of people are just searching for another dyad. And even though Palpatine says it hasn't been seen in like a generation, it still, I feel, shouldn't pop up in storytelling constantly.
Yeah, it would definitely cheapen the idea of the dyad between Ben and Rey.
Mm-hmm. If it pops back up, like, I think it should be Old Republic era. Let's go 1,000 years back at least. Like, people are also looking for dyads in the High Republic, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like,
yeah, like, there's so little known about the dyad, even in the universe of Star Wars, that it would have to be something like the original dyad. Pippin's going after my ears. Something like the original dyad has to be in some old ancient book somewhere. Or I guess they could jump way into the future and have one pop up there too, but that feels like something we wouldn't see for a very long time.
Yeah. I think they're going to let that idea breathe for a while. We'll see it referenced in reference books and maybe other stories, but I don't know that we should immediately see like a new dyad in the High Republic, and I don't think we will. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching. Have a very happy and safe Halloween, and eat lots of candy.